like Bill, who's calling in, just wants to know, hey, Bill, or hey, Larry, if you were me, what would you do? Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, how you doing, Larry? I really respect your opinion, and you take care of my car now with the AMSOIL. I'm getting ready to retire, and I'd like to buy a new pickup. But what ones do you have little trouble with? I'd like them to last.
Bill, I tell you, that's really a hard. It's really a hard question to answer. Toyota makes a great pickup truck, but there's certain engines that I don't really like. Ford, the F-150s, they make some great vehicles, but there's some of the engines I just don't care for. Same way with General Motors. It would depend on the engine itself, I think. And providing that somebody was planning on running, AMSOIL in the engine as well, that right there that's 90% of the battle, really, when you get down to it. GM. Well,
I plan on using the AMSOIL, but the GM has a 4-cylinder turbo, and I don't think that's enough for a pickup.
I'm not a fan of that. I'm not really a fan of the 2.7. Those are extremely small for a pickup truck if you ever want to do anything other than drive it to the grocery store. And I feel the same way about 2.7s and the F-150s. I just think it's way underpowered, and it'll do about anything you want, but it requires so much boost to get it to that point. Long-term boost on a motor that's turboed, you can only expect to compress so much pressure in a cylinder long-term. I'm like, well, I want the engine to be able to do a little on its own without having to use a turbo, even though my pickup truck does have twin turbos on it. But that 3.5 motor has just been a very, very well proven engine. They've held up, flawlessly with AMSOIL in them. We've literally had no problems with them at all. The only ones we replace are usually fleet vehicles that get an oil change once in a while and they don't use AMSOIL. Those are the only ones, and those are usually around a couple 100,000 miles, so I'm not even going to say it's bad. The Toyotas, if you bought a new Toyota Tundra with a 5.7 in it, those have been incredible vehicles. They have held up extremely well. They're trying to put 3.5 turbos in those, and I'm not a fan of it. We are having 3.5 engine problems with the Tacomas. I said, well, if they don't hold up in a little Tacoma, they darn sure ain't going to hold up too well in a full-size Tundra.
How about it?
Go ahead.
How about a Dodge?
It's like this. If I was to buy a Dodge, I'm not a fan of the Hemis or the 3.6 Pentastar motors. Because of the camshaft and rocker arm problems that they've all been plagued with over the years. Those are the types of things where, Bill, I tell folks before they go out and buy something, it doesn't hurt to spend some time online, and whatever vehicle that you're considering buying, put in, Dodge Ram engine problems or Dodge Ram transmission problems. Same thing with GM and Ford and everybody else. And kind of look and see what consumers, these will be independent kind of, it's not going to be, usually those types of reviews are disinterested third parties. They're not, nobody's padding anybody's pocket, so you can kind of get an idea. And I always tell folks, I don't believe it's a good idea to run out and buy a first year anything. It's just, there needs to be some sort of an established track record with any vehicle before you run out here and buy it. I don't want to be anybody's guinea pig at $70,000 or $80,000 for a new truck. That's kind of ridiculous. Right. So I want to make sure whatever I get, I'm going to wind up having it in my garage instead of it sitting in the garage at the dealership. So, you want to make sure that it's got a good track record on it. And there's a lot of vehicles out there that do. The F-150s with the 5.0 motors, they hold up extremely well. The 3.5 EcoBoosts are holding up good. The Toyota Tundras with the 5.7 V8, those things are just, you can't hardly kill them no matter what you do. A Dodge, if you're going into a heavier truck, like a 250, 2500 or 3500 series, to pull a motorhome or a big camper, you can't beat the Cummins 6-cylinder diesel. I mean, that is just a tried and true. You beat it to death and you just can't kill it. So there's a lot of good options out there. I would want to go with an engine and transmission combination that has proven itself for at least a few years before I go out here and spend a lot of money on it. GM on the other hand, they've had a few problems with their 8-speed transmission. So there's particular combinations that you just got to kind of really weigh out. Nobody's going to make a perfect vehicle, number one. But when you see so many of them plagued with the same problems over and over and over, we got a slap in the face when Jasper told us, Jasper's, pretty much the largest engine transmission remanufacturing company in the United States, and rightfully so. They make excellent products. Well, when they told us that they weren't building 8-speed GM transmissions because they couldn't warranty them, well, that threw up a red flag. You see what I'm saying? So I guess if you got one, the first thing you need to do is AMSOIL it and hope for the best. Same thing with their differentials. It's just these companies go and they'll start building something like the Carrier in a rear end that's always been made out of just molten steel. They'll start making it out of aluminum or something, and you have a high wear aspect that takes place with these components when they do that. And these are the types of things that'll come back and haunt a car company. And you sit there and you're like, well, why did they ever do that? Well, I mean, the name of the game, I guess, when it comes to manufacturing a vehicle is make money, and so if they can find a way to, chintzy it up just a little bit and save a few bucks in the manufacturing process, whether it be the material or where it's built, that's what they seem to try to do. And, if the consumer buys the wrong combination, then it could be, devastating. But I don't think you could go wrong with an F-150 3.5 EcoBoost or a 5.0 liter motor. You got to remember that 5.0 liter motor they use in that F-150 is the same thing they put in that Mustang GT. That people go out here and literally they'll put a supercharger on them, bigger injectors. They'll have those things pumping out way over 700 horsepower, and they hold up. You can't break them. So you take it, you put the same combination in an F-150 pickup truck that's not going to be experiencing nothing like that. Well, you could expect it to last a 500,000 mile with, daggone AMSOIL in it. So it's just when you see proven stuff like that over and over and over, that's the kind of thing that you want to read up on, and that way you'll have a little bit of a comfort level when you go out here and you actually start comparing prices and shopping. You'll always find a deal on an F-150 with a 2.7 motor in it. They're always going to be a lot less than a 3.5 EcoBoost or a 5.0, and there's a reason for it if you start reading reviews on it. So those are the kind of things that you're going to have to come up with a happy feeling with, So.
Well, I appreciate your knowledge, and that's what I'll do.
Just take your time and read the reviews. And if you buy a used vehicle by any means, Bill, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, I don't care if it's only got 10,000 miles on it. Make sure it gets put on a lift. You cannot imagine the trucks we'll get in that are sold locally by some of the truck dealers here in town. Used truck dealers, big used truck dealers. And they'll be from up north, and the person that buys them didn't even have a clue. And we'll get them up on the rack, and we'll sit there with a look at a vehicle that's a year old and 10,000 miles and go, what in the world? You'd have thought they must have fished it out of the ocean. It was so rusted up. So it like I said,
that's salt.
Yes, sir. It's come from up north. So even though if you consider a used one, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with buying a used one. I won't buy a brand new vehicle. I'll buy something that somebody's already bought, low mileage and maybe a year or two old. I don't like to take the initial depreciation on anything. But in a case like this, you find one with 10,000 miles. Bottom line is it's probably perfect. Just make darn sure that it gets put up on a lift, and you visually look at it yourself. Crawl up underneath there and look just to make sure you know what you're buying. Bill, I do appreciate your call, and you have a rest of your wonderful weekend, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. That opens up a line for you to get your question on the air with Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic. 844-580-9326. 844-580 WDBO. Danny, hang on. We're going to grab a quick break, and we'll get to your call right after this, along with anybody else who wants to call in. The phones are open for you. 844-580-9326, or send us an open mic. We'll be right back with more of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show.